He had never believed in miracles, until one evening in the company parking garage changed everything. 1. The mockery. Jonathan Pierce, the CEO of Pierce Industries, leaned against his sleek black SUV under the harsh fluorescent lights of the underground garage. He watched, with mild impatience, as Harold, the janitor, wheeled in an old, rusted motorcycle. The thing looked like it had been through 3 wars and lost them all. Its paint was faded, the metal corroded, and small patches of duct tape held pieces together. Jonathan smirked, crossing his arms. "Do you even ride that thing?" he called, voice sharp. "Or do you just push it home every night?" Harold glided to a stop, his expression calm but closed off. He didn't immediately respond. A few of the other night shift workers glanced over, awkwardly shifting. Jonathan laughed outright. It wasn't malicious, but it was cutting, the kind of jab a powerful man makes almost involuntarily, testing how much he can get away with. Harold gave a small, polite nod. "It's mine," he said simply. "It runs, sir." Jonathan raised an eyebrow in disbelief. "On what? Prayers and rust?" he asked. 2. The janitor's secret. Harold locked the bike near his cleaning supplies. Later, behind the concrete pillars where no one watched, he took a small, clear vial from his pocket, then unscrewed a cap on the bike's engine. With gentle care, he poured the liquid inside. It hissed softly, and the engine gave a low gurgle, as if it were waking from a dream. He flicked the ignition, and to his quiet satisfaction, the engine caught, not with a roar, but a smooth, sustained hum. The rusty machine vibrated in his hands, steady and sure, and he mounted it with a confidence he rarely showed in daylight. 3. A glimpse of hope. That night, after his shift cleaning the hallways and offices, Harold rode out of the garage. The wind was sharp, cool, and it felt like a small luxury, the taste of freedom in his lungs. He lived simply in a modest apartment nearby, barely making ends meet. The bike was his one joy, but not just any joy, it was his dream. Years ago, he'd been an engineer working on sustainable energy prototypes. He poured his heart into a secret project, a water-based fuel system that could power an engine. But when funding dried up, and investors fled, he was forced into menial work. His invention, half-finished, became a memory. The bike was the only prototype he could afford to keep together, cobbled from broken parts, salvaged supplies, and late-night tinkering. So when he made that vial of distilled, hydrogen-rich water solution, he did it quietly in his tiny kitchen lab. Every component was secondhand, every solder joint a labor of love. He didn't tell anyone what he was doing. Not his coworkers, not his family, except his daughter, Marisol, who believed in him even when the world didn't. 4. The turning point. Weeks passed. Jonathan couldn't get the image of that bike, and Harold, out of his head. There was something about the way Harold didn't flinch when mocked, something unassuming yet dignified. One late evening, Jonathan found himself alone in the lobby, waiting for his driver, when Harold passed by with a mop bucket. Jonathan hesitated, then called out, "Hey, Harold." Harold stopped and looked at him, mop in hand. "About that bike," Jonathan began awkwardly. "Show me how it works." Harold looked surprised, almost guarded, but nodded. He told Jonathan to meet him in the garage after hours. 5. The revelation. When Jonathan slipped into the garage that night, Harold was there waiting. He wore a jacket over his jumpsuit, and his hands were stained with grease and water. He beckoned Jonathan over. "This is what I spent years on," he said softly. He popped open the engine compartment, and Jonathan saw wires, tubes, and a small, gleaming chamber where the clear fluid rested. Harold poured some of the solution in, like before. Then he flipped a switch. The bike's engine came alive, but not like a polluting gas engine. There was a purity to the sound, almost like breath, and the hum was peaceful. The headlights glowed brighter than the garage's fluorescent lights, and Harold revved lightly. The bike moved, effortlessly. Jonathan's jaw dropped. He stepped back, heart pounding. "Is that running on water?" he whispered. Harold nodded. "A mixture of water and hydrogen. It's not perfect. It's just my prototype, but it works." Jonathan's mind reeled. He felt an unexpected swell of pride. Not just for the machine, but for Harold. He realized how little he knew the people who worked under him, how easily he judged. 6. Conflict and doubt. Just as things felt hopeful, trouble struck. 1 week later, Jonathan called a high-level board meeting to present a new green initiative. His plan was bold: invest in renewable technology. But when he mentioned water-powered engines, a few key board members scoffed. They labeled the concept fantasy fuel and warned of massive risks. Jonathan found himself caught between his responsibility to shareholders and his belief in Harold's vision. He knew that if he pushed too hard, he might tank the company. But if he didn't, he would fail his friend and the planet. Meanwhile, Harold wrestled with his own fears. He hadn't shown his invention to anyone else. What if it failed? What if the prototype broke down in front of investors? Worse, what if someone stole the design? He'd risk not only his job but his idea, the only thing he truly cared about. 7. A betrayal. Just as Jonathan leaned into his role as champion, a betrayal came. A rival company, Pierce Industries' fiercest competitor, got wind of his green initiative. One of Jonathan's close board members secretly started leaking the news. Within days, their rival published a scathing press release, mocking Pierce Industries for chasing impossible dreams. The company's stock began to wobble. Jonathan was shocked, angry, but also worried. He confronted the board member, but the man shrugged. "We're not building rocket ships. We're building businesses. These fantasy fuels, they're a liability." Harold, hearing the news, shut down. He stopped coming to the garage after his shifts. He avoided Jonathan's calls. He stayed later at home, tinkering furiously, yet more isolated than ever. 8. Crisis. One night, there was an accident. Harold was riding the bike home, overconfident in its power, when a small leak in the fuel chamber caused a sputter. The engine stalled on a quiet street, and Harold struggled to push it. He called Jonathan, voice strained. "I'm sorry," he said, voice close to tears. I messed up. The seal wasn't tight enough." Jonathan came without hesitation. He arrived to find Harold sweating over the bike, his face streaked with frustration and guilt. "It's okay," Jonathan said. "We'll fix it, together." They pushed the bike back to Harold's apartment lab. Jonathan stayed up with him, helping to re-weld the chamber, using spare parts and whatever tools he could scrounge. They worked through the night, the kind of night that forges something deeper than business partnerships. 9. Breakthrough. At dawn, after countless minutes of fine-tuning, they tried again. Harold poured in the hydrogenated water. He switched on the ignition. The engine hummed. It surged. The light glowed steady and bright, stronger than ever. Harold turned to Jonathan, eyes shining. "It's stable now," he said, voice thick with emotion. For the first time, Jonathan didn't see just a janitor. He saw a visionary. He saw his own doubts, dissipating in the glow of possibility. 10. A public moment. Jonathan decided to take a risk. At the next shareholders' meeting, he stood before a packed room, board members, investors, reporters. He spoke about sustainability, legacy, and innovation. Then he invited Harold forward. The janitor, dressed in his work clothes, greasy and humble, approached the podium. He carried the bike in, every dent and rusted patch on display. A gasp rippled through the crowd. Harold explained how he built the water-based fuel system. He walked them through the science: water, hydrogen extraction, the unique combustion chamber. He demonstrated by pouring the transparent fluid in front of everyone. The engine roared to life, the hum filling the hall. There was stunned silence. Then, a slow but genuine round of applause. Some journalists rushed forward with their phones. Others asked questions. A few skeptical investors stayed silent, brows furrowed in thought. 11. Resolution and growth. Over the following months, Pierce Industries committed real resources to Harold's vision. They established a research division led by him, funded fully by Jonathan's Green Initiative. They hired engineers, scientists, and students. They scaled the prototype from a single rusted bike into a small fleet of test vehicles. Jonathan learned something profound. True leadership doesn't always come from the corner office. Sometimes it emerges in the unlikeliest places, in the hands of someone who mops floors by day and changes the future by night. He realized that humility and respect aren't weaknesses, they're the ground on which innovation thrives. Harold's confidence grew, too. He mentored interns, shared his story, and inspired others who had been overlooked. Marisol, his daughter, watched him with pride. She had believed in him when no one else did, and now she saw his name on research papers and company reports. 12. The inspiring message. In the end, the bike was more than a machine, it was a symbol. A symbol of hope, perseverance, and unrecognized talent. It proved that ideas don't need to come from the top floor. That sometimes the most extraordinary inventions come from people humanity tends to ignore. Jonathan once mocked Harold for riding a dilapidated relic. But by believing in him, by offering his trust and resources, he helped unlock something incredible, a path to cleaner energy, and a powerful reminder that greatness can be found in unexpected places. Harold's invention didn't just run on water, it ran on dreams, determination, and respect. And together, they showed the world that when we lift each other up, we don't just build better machines, we build a better future. 13. Final reflection. Every time Jonathan walks past the company garage now, he smiles when he sees that old bike. Its rust may never fully vanish, but the engine still hums gently, a reminder that what matters most isn't how something looks on the outside, but what it holds inside. And for Harold, every time he pours in that clear, glowing fuel, he's not just powering a bike, he's fueling his purpose. He built something that defied expectations, defied mockery, and proved that innovation doesn't belong to the powerful or wealthy, it belongs to the hopeful, the patient, and the brave. They started as CEO and janitor. Now, they're partners in change. And sometimes, that's all it takes for a simple, rusted bike to change the world.